So I want to go back to my comments. The life of 15-year-old Jamari Rice was taken away from him and his family, and also critically wounded a 17-year-old student on February 1st, just not too long ago. The Richfield School shooting occurred within District 287, in which Wilder has a school-based mental health team. Wilder had a therapist and an intern in the building where the shooting occurred, and this tragedy has caused tremendous amount of stress and heartbreak for the families, students, teachers, and staff working throughout the district. Dr. Benita Amedee, who you will hear from shortly, actually leads our team in District 287, and we're so grateful she's able to be with us today in light of the recent events. In memory of Jamari Rice and all those impacted by the shooting, and in honor of all the families who have been impacted by the gun violence, including the family of Amir Locke, please join me in a moment of silence at this time. Thank you for doing that in memory of those individuals that have been impacted by the recent incidences in our community. Now, to give you some context to today's topic, I want to share some background on Wilder's work in mental health and wellness. It's just, for me personally, been an amazing experience to see every day the impact we have in so many different ways across our community for services that are needed more than ever. Wilder has been providing mental health services to kids since 1924, nearly 100 years ago. We were among the nation's first child guidance clinics. We have a long history of serving kids and families, especially in a culturally designed way, and are recognized as a state and national leader. We have had therapists serving in St. Paul Public Schools for more than 30 years, starting in 1991 with our Kofi program for African-American boys. Since that time, we have expanded our school-based services to include culturally specific programs for Hmong, Somali, and Latinx boys and girls. We are currently serving upwards to 450 students each year at 30 school sites in St. Paul and across the Twin Cities. Sites include elementary, middle, and high schools, public and charter. Given the success and requests from our school partners to help more kids, we included expansion of school-based mental health in our campaign for families. Since launching the campaign in 2018, we have raised more than $14 million towards the campaign overall. A portion of those investments have allowed us to add 11 new schools and an additional therapist in one school with significant needs. As a result of this growth, we are now in 45%, so almost half of the St. Paul Public Schools, and are poised to continue growth. One day, we would love to be in all the schools, not just in St. Paul, but my vision would be for the whole state of Minnesota, even in country, if we could pull that off. So at the close of today's program, we'll share our short campaign video with you that shows our school-based work in action. We're so grateful to so many donors and partners, including many of you who have contributed to the campaign and helped us reach more kids than ever. So thank you so much for your generous support. Now, for the next 20 minutes, we're going to be part of a conversation, all of us together as a collective, between Dr. Benita Amedee and our clinical supervisor and our VP of Advancement, Michelle Morehouse. We'll take a deeper dive into our school-based work in a Q&A style format with an opportunity for you to ask your own questions. So as you think of them, feel free to pop them up in the chat as we move forward and to get us a head start on those questions as well and as they come up. Now, I'll turn it over to Michelle and Benita, who will share a bit about their roles and history with Wilder. So welcome, Michelle and Benita.
Thanks, Armando. And happy birthday, Armando.
Welcome. Thank you. That's very nice. I love celebrating birthdays because the alternative is not good. If we're not celebrating birthdays, that's not a good thing. So thank you so much. Glad to be here at work with you guys today, celebrating my birthday. So thank you.
You bet. I had a crazy idea that we could have everyone unmute and sing to you. And then I thought, that might get a little chaotic. So we won't be doing that. But thanks everybody for joining, and thanks Bonita again for agreeing to be interviewed live. I'm a big fan of Bonita's, so I'm excited that she's here with us today. So my name is Michelle Morehouse, and I'm the Vice President for Wilder's Advancement Office. In April of this year, I will have been at Wilder for 16 years. Benita, you might not know that on my very first day at Wilder in 2006, I went to launch with the director of our school-based mental health programs, Rudy Russo. Rudy started all of this back in 1991. I'm sure, Bonita, you can understand, and those of you who have met Rudy and love him like so many of us do, when I met him on that first day, I was completely hooked with the, his passion for our school-based work and for the importance of mental health in the schools. So for my first 8 years at Wilder, I was a program developer for many programs, including school-based mental health, which means I worked with directors like Rudy to strategize about community needs and then think about the strengths of our staff and our programs so that we can respond to those community needs. For the last 8 years now, I've been lucky enough to lead our advancement team, which is a small but mighty team of 18 people that does all of Wilder's communications, volunteer engagement, and donor sponsorship and grant fundraising. So you didn't come here to hear from me, so that's enough about me. I'm going to turn it to Bonita. So I looked into this and I found out that when I met Rudy on that first day back in 2006, there were just 9 staff doing mental health work in the schools. And so, Bonita, I'm hoping you can share with us a little about yourself and what that mental health team looks like now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it. And Armando. And happy birthday, Armando. Oh, again, my name is Benita Amedee, and I have a doctorate in counseling psychology, and I'm licensed as a professional clinical counselor. This may be a surprise, but I've actually worked for Wilder for 20 years. So 10 years in residential, when we had a residential program with teen moms, left and came back. That's how good Wilder is. And the 10 years have been with school-based mental health. I'm one of 7 of the clinical supervisors in school-based and lucky enough to be a supervisor for a new innovative program that we've started. As Armando mentioned, the school-based team is part of Wilder's broader mental health division, which is 145 people serving from infancy all the way to the elderly. That's 2,000 people per year. We, as a school-based team, have a group of 43 individuals. That includes interns. And we are officed in the schools, which is really helpful to our families. We meet individually, in groups, with families, in schools, in homes, in the community, wherever they want to meet with us. And we also work with the school staff. We'll talk later, but as you can imagine, it's been very stressful for school staff. So help supporting them in the hard work that they're doing. And along with traditional school-based mental health services that we may all be familiar with, Wilder has a culturally specific programming. So this model, the staff generally match the culture of the students and families that they're working with. The other thing we have, which is kind of lucky, as a school-based person, you're kind of everything to the family. They don't necessarily trust the system, so we're also case managers in a way. That means I've been in line and helping with insurance, welfare line, all those things, and you don't get paid for that. So we've been lucky enough to hire a family navigator who's able to do all those services, help with all the resources that are needed, housing, transportation, those kinds of things. And the extra special thing about it is that she was a Kofi mom. So her son now is a grown man. He's got a child of his own, but she brings this special connection because she understands the families and they feel understood and respected.
Awesome. And yeah, she's amazing, Sonia. And she brings sunshine wherever she goes. So a question I sometimes hear from people, and I know I wondered when I first heard about having therapists in schools, is what's the difference really between the school staff who are doing some mental health work, like a counselor or a school social worker, and what Wilder's doing, and how does that all work together?
Sure. Well, actually today, I think actually this week, it's school counselor week. something like that. I heard that on CCO this morning. And some of you have mentioned that you did or didn't have school counselors. So that is a big part of being a mental health, part of the mental health team of a school. Not every school has a social worker or counselor. Usually they have a social worker, but not a counselor. Depends. And elementary, especially, are not mandated to have counselors. So in the school I was in, it was 800 kids, one counselor, and one social worker. It's a lot of work to do. So then they have to kind of segregate it out. The social worker works with mostly with the kids who are in special ed, and the counselor with everybody else. As you can imagine, that's a lot of work and mostly group work. We're lucky enough then to be able to do a deep dive with the students that are referred to us, to work with them individually and in groups and the family in a way that it's too hard to do for the rest of the mental health staff at schools. We are partners with them though, and try to work together. It's really helpful. I've always said that a big part of my job is to help the staff, the adults, like and understand our students, because sometimes their behaviors are not likable and they're not understandable. So it's important to help adults expand their understanding of what's happening at home and what's behind the behaviors.
Absolutely. And isn't that, kind of how this all got started? Can you describe a little bit about what was happening 30 years ago and how Wilder came to be in this work in the schools?
Sure. So at that time, 30 years ago, St. Paul schools flagged an issue of a very large number of African-American boys being directed to special ed services. We're not saying that special ed isn't helpful for kids, but if they're just sort of pushed in and placed, they weren't getting what they needed. They weren't being seen in the way they needed to be seen. So the schools and county asked Wilder to help design something, and Rudy was a part of that. Michelle, this is something maybe you don't know, but as an intern with Wilder, I actually did some of those groups with Kofi. So the way that Kofi had started out, it was more mentorship than therapy. Nice emoji there. So the therapy was provided as groups. Now we've shifted into more of a therapeutic model, which means we have master level therapists working with the kids and families in the schools, and not necessarily just mentoring, although we do mentor the kids. The other change is, of course, opening up to girls, so African-American girls, and then using the base of that model, of Kofi model, to work with other cultural communities. Luzhong, for example, is for Hmong kids now, more opened up to Southeast Asian kids, others, Latinx students, and just recently Somali students. So as was mentioned earlier, that's 30 schools. It's a lot of schools, elementary, middle, high school, which has all been a growth. It started out just to be elementary, 3rd grade to 6th grade. And Armando, I'm exhausted thinking about that we'd be in every school in the nation, but that's wonderful.
I'm exhausted thinking about raising all the money to do that.
We got to think big, guys. We got to think big. This is a huge issue across not just the United States, the whole world.
It's massive, like a dual pandemic, right? Absolutely. So I love that. I love the culturally designed nature of our work. Can you describe a little bit about why it's so important to have a therapist, that has the same cultural identity as most of the kids that they're doing work with?
Sure. So in some cases, sure this makes sense. It's a language match that's critical. The parents of some of our students, Hmong students or Latinx students, for example, may not be fluent in English. It's far better for a therapist to be able to talk freely with a parent and the kid to not have to do the translation. But also other communities may have a different understanding of mental health. In fact, may not even have a language or the words for mental health. And so the staff are able to explain in a non-threatening, non-stigmatizing way the struggles their student is having. It's an interesting dance, right? To get in there and make sure that kids are supported and parents are supported when mental health is really seen as a weakness or, something like that. So it's quite an intricate dance. It also helps to have a shared identity for families, for kids to know that we know what it feels like to walk in the same body. I do want to tell you a story from Mary. So she's a supervisor with our Lujang program. Mary had quite a bit of work to start out Lujang because these were the quiet kids, the kids that people didn't really see as having a problem. Like if you're not having an outside behavior, people are like, oh, they're fine. And so to really go to the teachers and explain, this is what an issue may look like with a Hmong kid. And this is why you need to pay attention and hopefully refer. At the same time, talking to the parents about it. So she told me about a student that she had referred, who's in second grade. We'll call him Feng. And he was referred because of anxiety and selective mutism. No one had heard him speak since preschool. So the school had reached out to the parents and they just said, well, he's fine at home. So then that kind of ended that. And after she spoke with the teachers, they referred this student to Mary. Mary then was able to talk to the parents and find out more information, that this young boy was teased in preschool for not being fluent in English and having a slight stutter. And so then he just stopped speaking. He'd come home sad and crying. So she spent the next 4 months with him, meeting weekly. He wouldn't speak the whole time. So they would use art and play. At the end of the school year, he wrote her a letter that said, I'll speak in my third grade. And he did. And in fact, she said that in fifth grade, he made a presentation to his class. So yeah, an amazing thing. And that really is that dance for the teachers to understand there's an issue here and for the parents to understand as well. It's easier to build trust with the parents and with families. Parents trust that they're not going to be judged by us. And I have an example of that, calling a family here at the school I'm at to talk to them about the program and inform them. And the mom was a little wary. She asked, will the therapist understand me? Will they ask me questions and not just judge me? She noted that she had a bad experience with being judged about her parenting style. This was an African-American parent. And I knew what she meant. And so, nope, we got you. It's okay. We'll get somebody in there who will understand and talk to you. Also, I think maybe most importantly, why we do our work, one of our therapists had said in high school, she needed support and would have really liked somebody to talk to who looked like her. And that's why she went into the field.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I could listen to those stories as long as you want to talk about them. I've also heard you talk about the different aspects of just how the work happens with kids and groups of kids too. That is really lifts up culture. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we talk about and work on things with students and their families that elevate the strength of culture, ancestry, history. It doesn't get to happen as much as it should. I guess everybody is now hearing it doesn't happen at all. So it's just as meaningful for the parents as it is for the kids. They some of our parents have had really hard times in school, not feeling heard or seen. And then as adults, as parents, they only get contacted when their kids are being bad. So we're a nice bridge over that as well. We have rites of passage programs that we've designed for kids to have activities to help them see their culture in a different light. And this is for kids and parents. In this way, they get to see their culture in a way that wasn't media fed. So not seeing themselves as bad or dangerous and not knowing their history. We have a short memory for history in cultural communities that's shared. So in that way, for example, I really make sure kids know Black kids, that you didn't come from a history of slavery. You came from before that, those kinds of things. But that's true of the Hmong culture and Latinx culture as well. In fact, school-based mental health's mission statement is wellness through cultural healing. So we found that this pride has also transferred to academic success, which, to be real, that's what the schools want. That's what the parents want, that the kids do well in school. Placing an emphasis on culture is a distinction of Wilder's. And we're really good at it, I think, anyway. We work hard to hire and retain a diverse group of outstanding staff. I think you'll get to see a picture of all those lovely faces.
I love that you said we're good at it. I think we're way too humble. I know you guys are incredible at it. One of the things that I've heard you talk about is the impact of trauma, and just I'm a little bit of a science geek, and you've talked about like really what that trauma can do, like physiologically, to your body and your brain, and why then for a kid who may have experienced, we're going to get the picture of the staff. Nice. That's Bonita's team. So I've heard you talk about the impact of trauma on body and brain, and why that can a lot of times make it so difficult for kids kind of to just sit in classroom and think about math, for example. Can you, for the other geeks that may be on the line, can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Our bodies were designed well, right? The reaction to trauma is to protect itself. Increased cortisol level, heart beating faster, blood to your limbs to allow you to fight or run or hide. That's necessary to survive. And the issue with it is it's designed for a short amount of time, right? Threat shouldn't be that long. You should be able to get away from it. But if the threat doesn't go away, if it's always in your mind, then your body is still acting like it's in threat. So, for example, being hypervigilant, looking for exits, things like that. And as you can imagine, you can't be looking at the board if you're always scanning the room, always worried. It makes it difficult to pay attention. And this is adaptive, right, for what it's needed, but it's maladaptive for the classroom. It's exhausting for the kids. It's exhausting for the adults. And they look bad, hyperactive, or, when it's really anxiety that's in their bodies.
Yeah, I remember one time you described it as similar to just kind of always being on a roller coaster, which I thought was a horrific thought and exhausting. Like, I don't like roller coasters anyway, but I mean, to think about that being your just state of being all the time, I can't imagine. Mm-hmm. So speaking of trauma, what about the pandemic? I mean, how has that impacted kids, teachers, your team?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think since everybody in the room has been through this, especially at the beginning when we were, we were all scared to death and didn't know what to do and if we could even leave. It was really just even stressful in our homes. The idea then that now we can leave with some, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, all of those things that make it hard. Kids' self-regulation has just been gone after distance learning for so long. They've, again, just like all of us, you're sitting in your house all the time, you're getting up all the time, getting snacks. You haven't really worked on that muscle, that school muscle, that sitting, paying attention. I've had kindergarten teachers tell me that their kindergartners are like preschoolers right now. They're really starting from the beginning. They have difficulty waiting and struggle with their peers. And again, they haven't practiced that school muscle. The stressors on our mental health team are also tremendous. So it's this dual pandemic, as we noticed, and as Armando mentioned at the beginning. So not only are they dealing with the concerns of COVID themselves, but also the civil unrest as well. And then they're extending their hearts to help students and families do the same, deal with the same. So another difficulty is we want to be in the same room with our kids and our families, right? And it was this dangerous time. So here we're trying to do, and just try to imagine that, therapy, telehealth therapy with kids. You know, it works for older children, it works for adults. It's really hard with little kids as they're taking you to their house or you're under their beds, those kinds of things. And that was stressful for the staff as well. They're worried about their own safety, but also wanting to see the kids and families. It's a tough time. The kids are stressed, the adults taking care of them are stressed, and the helpers are stressed.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we go to questions from the group, I want to bring us a little bit to an up note, up from the pandemic. I know that you have a story that you are going to share. So if you could share that, and then maybe say for you, really, what's the best part of the job? I mean, it seems like a hard job. What's the best part?
Sure. I'm going to tell you the story, and I guess the best part of the job will even be part of this story, right? We get to help kids in all kinds of ways. They come to us for all kinds of reasons, so big and small. Of course, it's all big for the student and for their family. I've had cases where a student was so anxious he couldn't go to the bathroom at school, but then couldn't hold it on the bus. And he really just wanted to go to the overnight with his classroom, right? And so you can't do that if you're not able to, if you're wetting your pants, So that kind of story, it seems like a small thing. It's a big, big thing to a parent and to a child. We get kids who have experienced abuse, physical abuse, witnessed domestic violence, all of those things that we get to support them through. My story is about a friend that I met in kindergarten. So as I mentioned earlier, Kofi was from third grade to just sixth grade at the time when St. Paul schools went to sixth grade for elementary. And we didn't have anybody who worked with younger kids, and I have an expertise with younger children. So they moved me to this school. They wanted somebody because she was running out of the school, running out into the parking lot, running around the school, really dysregulated. She needed lots of support in school and at home, and I worked with her through fifth grade. That's when they switched. So that whole time she was in school. She did so much work in that time. As you can imagine, life just happens. It was an accident. There's family things. You are part of the family at that point. You're in their home. You know what other supports they need. You're helping get them food, help with housing, and help with even sister school for this particular kid. So really, really a part of the family. When she went to middle school, I tried to connect her with a Kofi therapist in middle school, and she was like, no, I think I can do this. Then I got a call from mom a little later that said, no, if you can you do anything? And now just recently, I got an email with her picture. She wanted mom to send me the picture. She's a freshman in high school and doing well, and she wanted me to know. And of course, I can't wait to get the invitation to graduation. And mom said, absolutely. So that's why I do the job. It's those stories. It's being part of people's lives. It's the only thing I know how to do. And so there's positives, little and huge, and all of those are big for the family. So it's a puzzle to solve that we solve together. So it's a privilege.
Well, thank you for doing it. It's incredible. And thank you and the other 42 people on the school-based team, in addition to you, who do that work, because it's so incredible. Okay, well, I'm gonna open it up to questions, and we'll see what we've got. So we have a question here that I'll let you respond to. Some of them might get booted to Armando, so you might need to be at the ready for these questions, Armando. So the first one, is Wilder getting the support needed from St. Paul Public Schools?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we are. As you can imagine, they're very stressed as well. And so we do support one another in all of this. So yes.
And I know that, isn't it, the way that it works is basically they provide the space at the school. And then, obviously we're providing the service, but that space is the agreement that works well.
Right. Well, it's not just the space, it's the space. We ask for like a desk and a phone, we're not asking for much, but the big part of what we're asking for actually, and that the support that you're talking about, is that we really do need administration to think that it's important. Mental health services are helpful. We need the referrals. We need somebody to allow us to take students out of the classroom to meet all of those things. And so they have been great partners in all of that.
That's awesome. Okay, Judy Kishel. Hey, Judy has put a question in here about how bullying is handled, especially social media bullying.
That's a good question. So this actually goes to the answer of the partnering with schools. Schools have already criteria of what they do, and social workers might have groups. If it's one of our kids and we're really involved in that, helping the student work through it, figure it out, even if that's restorative circles with other students, if that's needed. We work with the school team on that.
All right, Tony. Hey, Tony. So great question. And this will be one, I think, that will lead to a need for much more fundraising to support this work. What would be at the elementary school level in districts like St. Paul, what would be the recommended therapist to student ratio?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a hard question. Maybe that goes to Armando's answer of like a therapist everywhere. I would say more than one, right? And actually, I would also say in an elementary school, they need a counselor, maybe more than one. I how that works, but there's enough work for all of us to do. They could use quite a few of us, like Wilder in a school, but also their own school mental health staff. I don't know what that ratio would be exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the statistic that it's 1 in 5, right? Students or young children would have a diagnosable mental health concern. Is that correct still?
Yes.
Just like in a general population. So, Tony, I don't know that means 1 to 5. That would be pretty amazing. But clearly there's plenty of need to go around. Debbie Lee, thanks for joining, Debbie. So what Debbie wants to know, what are the biggest barriers to getting students the services that they need to succeed?
That's a good question. One of the barriers, I think, actually, which is improving, is shame about mental health. So actually getting people to say, I need support, and accepting it. So that does mean that we do a lot of courting as therapists. A parent might be thinking this is important, or the staff might be at school think it's important, and the parent isn't so sure. And so we do just a lot of calling and courting, making sure it's understood that it's okay. And so I think that's a huge barrier. Of course, that courting, spending time doing the other work around just what insurance covers is another barrier, which is, I guess, why we're all here, right? We need support for that, get those services. Same with the rites of passage programs I'm talking about. That's not insurance-based either. So I think maybe like everything, a barrier is resources, funding.
Right, so you can do that response to the whole person. Comment from Jackie Turner, who's on Wilder's board of directors, as was Judy Kishel. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. And Jackie says, Dr. Amedee, thank you for all you and your team do in the schools. Oh, hey, Jackie, you could have asked it yourself. And what does support look like during the summer months?
Well, that's where the fun happens, I think, too. Some of our students go to summer school, so there is that. We support in the schools in the same way. But this is a chance that they get to learn in other ways. So we get to be out in the community with them, taking them on field trips, going hiking. We have had a wonderful relationship with a couple of camps. And so getting them signed up for just a typical summer camp. It's what I've learned the most, and how you learn really how to do this job when you take a bunch of boys to the art museum. It's a good time, but we spend a lot. You get to spend extra time with the kids out in the community.
Thank you.
Just in case somebody is not a big fan of the chat function, I'm just going to pause in case someone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question verbally.
I have one, and I'm not a big fan of the chat. I'm more of a talker, Michelle, as you know.
Go for it.
Benita, one of the challenges that we're learning about, of course, is representation in all our areas of life, basically having people that look like you and understand and lived experiences. And in the schools, that's more glaring than any other sector out there, because especially in our school, majority of students in the St. Paul school specifically are students, BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, so these students. So can you talk a little bit about what's being done or should be done to have more therapists in the pipeline to get into the field that actually represent the community and have lived life experiences? Because, I moved here from Puerto Rico in 1980 when I was 6, and there was like zero representation of Latinx leaders, teachers, so forth. And when I was a school principal and a special education teacher, there still was not much representation. I think, unfortunately, still is the case. So can you, from a mental health therapist, just speak real quick to the challenge, the importance, and anything that's being done, just so that our audience has a better context of what the challenges are to have representation, especially in the therapy area field?
Sure. Thanks, Armando. It's a hard question, too. It is a huge challenge. And again, I do think Wilder is good at that. We really work hard to get interns, BIPOC interns, so that we can keep them through and help them grow at Wilder. It's difficult with kids. So I've been surprised actually to find people graduating from school and starting a private practice right away. So it's folks of color starting a private practice, which is wonderful, but we really need them to be at community mental health with us and seeing the clients that don't necessarily make it in other places, because there's a lot of times that people aren't showing up, things like that. So really working even in the master's level to get students to know who we are and what we do and why we do what we do, so that they come through that pipeline with us. And we're still working on that, trying to make it as attractive as we can to help the families. Working with kids is hard because you're not just working with one person, right? You're working with the school team, you're working with the parents, and that takes a lot. Again, as I mentioned, insurance doesn't necessarily pay for all that. So people want to work with adults. That's, maybe easier in some ways, even though the work is hard. So it's very specific, trying to get people who want to work with kids and stay, and then mentoring those students to stay with us, hopefully us, maybe others, and see the importance. I think once they do have a chance to do that, they do stay. We've had actually, I'm hoping it will be a really nice program where I work. It's a level 4 program. There's EAs, and a lot of the EAs are folks of color. So those are education assistants. And they're interested in what we do because we have a therapist in the classroom. So what we've been able to do, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of them. They're interested in doing what we do. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we get them to start being a classroom therapist and move from there. Right now, we do have one classroom therapist that has their bachelor's, not their master's, and she's in school. She'll be in school this summer. So if we can grow that way, and because they have experience, it would be really helpful for kids and families.
Thank you.
That answers that.
Thanks. So we have one other question that had come in before the event from someone who's interested to know more about things being created for people with disabilities to keep them from being homeless or in jail. And my assumption on that question is that, probably the description around people who experience disabilities would be pretty broad. So special ed and mental health.
Yeah. So we
version and go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. Wilder does have some support through a grant. I think probably this is a question Janaea might end up answering later, but we're able to do that. That's one of the things Sonia does, is help support families with housing and getting a housing grant. Like you said, if they're saying disabilities as in special education, one of the things we really try to support is also a disability that a parent might have. We might have parents who don't read, or, those kinds of things, helping them be able to answer forms and fill out things so that they're not homeless. I don't know about the jail part, but at least helping with the homelessness.
All right. Well, I'm going to pass the mic back to Armando. And, if there are other verbal questions, definitely jump in. But this was fun. I'm a big fan of yours, Bonita. So it was fun to be able to do this. So back to you, Armando.
Great. Yes. Benita, I'm sure you have a lot of new fans today, a part of this. And I just want to deeply thank you and your team for everything that you do. And as you know, Benita, my background's an educator. I'm an educator at heart and former teacher with students working with emotional behavior disorders. I actually did my internship at the Eisenmenger program at Maxfield, which Eisenmenger was a Wilder program as well, back in 96, 97 time period. So for me, this is personal as well, because I just know many people who struggle. And so I'm just blessed to be here with you and your team. And I am serious. I would love for this to be expanded across a lot of areas. I know we all would. So thank you again for everything that you're doing. And thanks to everyone for asking your questions. Just know that we're always available to engage in these conversations as we move forward. Mental health is a big thing in our communities, as we all know, and we need to be talking about it, and especially getting upstream on this issue with our kids. So we also have a lot more content about our school-based work, and also the Campaign for Families, which is supporting our expansion efforts as well. You can go to our website, www.wilder.org/families to learn more as well. And also, if you're interested in participating in the campaign, we have just so many donors, and we're getting to reach our goal here, hopefully in May, to raise $17 million for a variety of critical services here at Wilder. Just please reach out to Michelle. And as you saw and heard from Michelle today, she's willing to give her cell phone out, which is pretty cool. So her cell phone number is 651-335-9935. Again, 651-335-9935. And she's really good with texting too as well. She sends you really cute emojis back and forth. So please reach out to her on her cell phone. You can text her. Also, her email is michelle.morehouse@wilder.org. So at this time, we'll roll the campaign video. We're so excited to share this with you. So hopefully leave an uplifting note on top of what Benita shared, which was also very uplifting as well. And hopefully this will bring warmth to your day on this chillier, cold, windy, snowy day that we're supposed to have. So again, we're grateful for your time and efforts. And it's an honor again to be with you today. So please enjoy the video. At Wilder, we know family is everything. Strong families are at the heart of any vibrant community. When families struggle, our entire community suffers. And when families thrive, our whole community benefits.
My name is Courtney, and I live on the east side of St. Paul. I'm a shelter advocate, and I'm also a PCA worker as well. Well, part of how I became part of Wilder, we all got hit with the pandemic and COVID. I ended up losing my job. I got laid off, and I was in a bind trying to figure out, how I'm gonna pay this rent and keep this rent going. Direct housing assistance made a difference for me because it's given me the opportunity to really just be stress-free. I'm a type of person that worries a lot because I experienced being homeless before, and it's not a good feeling. So it's just been, I just can't express how grateful I am to be a part of this program. It's been awesome. I've been able to elevate and get a better job experience, and now I'm working as a shelter advocate, and it's been the most awesome experience ever. So it's been a blessing for me.
Through the Campaign for Families, we are raising $17 million to stabilize thousands of families, improve the mental health and well-being of our children, and build community wealth through life-changing connections. Our approach focuses on helping entire families get what they need to be healthy, stable, and strong, all in one place. That's the Wilder difference.
School-based mental health at Wilder has a therapist in the school. It makes it easier for kids and families to have somebody there that they can see. They don't have to take off a school day. Parents don't have to take off work. Services are right there for them. In order for children to live happy and healthy lives, they need support. They need someone to go to. They need skills to help them with their problems and with their friendships and with their families. That's what we provide.
I had the opportunity to work with Wilder Foundation when I worked at Gaultier Magnet Elementary Schools back in the early 80s because I know the work that Wilder has done, and it's something that is really needed in our building. So we're really excited to have that therapist in our building, especially when families are in dire needs and need some support, and if their child needs some extra support. So, it's a win-win situation to have our therapists in our building. We build a lot of community partnerships within our school. Our student demographics, we're 95.7% student of color, and that brings the richness of what we do at Hazel Park because of our diversity.
We have therapists of the same culture of the kids and the families. We have Kofi for African American kids, Lujong for Southeast Asian kids, Sombrando for Latinx and Spanish-speaking children. Parents feel understood and not judged. They feel like, with a similar background, I understand what they're saying. You're in the family. You know siblings, cousins, aunties, uncles. We do work in home. In this job, we see little changes every day, and that's what gives you hope. Every day there's something small, something, a success on the bus on the way to school, sitting down during math. Every day there's something, and it gives you hope.
Wilder is uniquely positioned to help families be the agents of their own change, to take control of their future. We have a culturally diverse staff who reflect the people we serve, an expert research team, and deep community roots. Courageous change takes all of us, and it takes investment. Please join us in the Campaign for Families as we build a stronger St. Paul, one family at a time. Well, that concludes our program. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a great day. Again, thanks for all your support, and thanks again to Michelle, Benita, and all the team to make this day happen for us. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.